Chapter 4, A Hole in One. Inquest number 228. You have an inquest, says the Tyler dispatcher at the Texas Department of Public Safety, on the Gladewater Municipal Golf Course. The winter day is cold at 1:45 in the afternoon and strangely foggy. In East Texas, comfort is determined by the humidity rather than the temperature. Water evaporates from many lakes and rivers as well as from the Gulf of Mexico 250 miles south. Yankees say we don't even know what winter is. We do, however, get snow in East Texas. At times, it even stays on the ground for a few days. We have our hills and valleys, and it can really get cold in the low-lying places. When I was in high school, I rode my Honda 90 motorcycle through the Harris Creek bottom, and my ski mask froze to my straggly sophomore mustache. Now I'm driving in the comfort of my SUV through that same creek bottom. Today it's not that cold. My best guess is that an old golfer doing what he loved took his last swing and fell over with a heart attack. Or maybe he was killed by lightning. Several golfers are struck by lightning every year. I play golf every year at least once. I bought an expensive set of golf clubs 8 years ago, and they're still almost like brand new. They may be in my garage or in the hoedown building. Now the building I use for storage. I'm not really sure. I wonder why the Department of Public Safety is calling me about someone on a golf course. The Department of Public Safety usually works highways and traffic fatalities. This might be a golf cart mishap. Maybe someone crashed a car or a motorcycle into a golf cart, or the golf cart crashed after getting hit by a golf ball. The golfers have been hacking the Gladewater Country Club since 1933. It lies between Texas State Highway 271 and Country Club Road, the latter which provides entry into the club. From the state highway, I see flashing blue and red lights, fire trucks, and at least 5 law enforcement vehicles encamped across the green on one of the holes. Being a lazy golfer and breaking the cart trail rule, I drive my car across the green to the scene. Members of the Department of Public Safety, Smith County Sheriff's deputies, Gladewater police officers, and Gladewater and Winona volunteer firefighters are all standing around a hole in the ground and a twisted pile of metal. I smell fuel of some kind and the smell of smoke that I don't see. Some of the nearby pine trees appear slightly singed and charred. It looks like a flash fire. Flash fires occur in an environment where fuel, typically flammable gas or dust, is mixed with air in concentration suitable for combustion. The fuel combusts with a poof, and then it's over and done. A flash fire sucks the oxygen out of the air so fast and burns so quickly that not everything is turned to ashes. The ground is muddy, either from the humidity, past rain, or water from one or more of the fire trucks in attendance. The fire hoses seem neatly rolled on the truck, so that rules out the latter. The first challenge at a death scene is to find a person in charge. Sometimes it turns out to be you. I check with people from various agencies represented. The FFA should be in charge, says the DPS sergeant. If it's the Federal Aviation Administration, then it sounds like a plane crash. Scattered around are the remains of what could have been a very large aluminum can. The largest mass of twisted debris shows some signs of its recent life as a small airplane. 40 feet away, leaning against a tree, are remains of the plane's tail fin. An aircraft door lies on the green near the cup. Where's the FFA? I ask. On the way from Austin, replies the sergeant. Maybe 4 to 6 hours away. Do we have a name? Don Murdoch taxied off the Tyler Poundsfield Airport earlier today. The control tower thinks it might be him. We're securing the area and waiting for them to make the call. Tyler Poundsfield is 40 miles southwest of our location. The Gladewater Municipal Airport is 2 miles away and small in comparison to Tyler, but it houses many private aircraft. Planes landed on grass there before 1947 when 2 paved landing strips were built. It's also a favorite place for my nephew Jeff and his son to skydive. Different judges handled inquests in different ways. I could have said, call me when the FFA gets here and get your ducks in a row. I'm going home. I decided to stick around. No two death scenes are the same. Law enforcement officials at inquest scenes may include representatives from the county sheriff, constables, city police, fire marshal, Texas Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms, Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas Department of Public Safety, including the Texas Rangers, and various other agencies. This time, it will be the Federal Aviation Administration. They all pretty much get along and work together when they have to. They eat and party together at the Peace Officers Association. But they're all paid differently, they have different bosses, and are trained differently. Each department has its unique set of rules. Their members live and work in the same area, but the agencies have their territory or turf. Some officers work with judges, and some do not have a clue about Chapter 49 and the performance of an inquest. Although the law indicates that an inquest is investigative in nature, the judge is usually not the investigator. Whatever the type of investigation, an appropriate agency should be the one running it. The judge does not run the investigation, but instead attempts to see that it is properly performed. We may not be the fact finders, but we do review the evidence in order to make an informed ruling or finding. In the event that there's no law enforcement or other agency involved, or for some other reason we need to, we do it all. The bottom line is this: the signature of the Justice of the Peace will go on that death certificate, thus certifying the cause, manner, and time of death. Usually it does not take a rocket scientist to figure out what happened. In this case, the Gladewater Airport is close by. "Planes buzz this golf course all the time," says one of the witnesses. "This one sounded different, like it was running real fast and coming down. And then there's this pop sound. It wasn't a big explosion, just a pop." "Call the funeral home," I tell the sergeant. "We're fixing to move on." "I don't know, Judge. I think the FFA will want us to wait till they get here." "Sergeant, I'd like for them to be here right now. It looks like neither one of us is going to get what we like. There are a few things we need to do. First, we need to figure out how many were in the plane. Second, who was piloting the plane. Third, notify the next of kin. Fourth, send the victim or victims to an autopsy. It will take an hour for the funeral home to get here. Have you taken any pictures?" "Yes," he says. "You might want to shoot a video. We'll try to leave as much undisturbed as we can for the FFA. We don't know when or if they'll get here. I don't see a fire around here, so it's going to get cold around here and maybe wetter." The clouds are now looming above us as the fog lifts. A mist of droplets had begun just a few minutes ago. "Let's do the removal of the body and leave the scrap metal for the flyboys."
"Get the funeral home en route,"
the sergeant orders the dispatcher over his radio. Pilots call it vertigo. When flying in fog, the pilot may become disoriented. The instruments say you're upside down, but you feel like you're right side up. The altimeter is telling you that you're spinning down, but you feel like you're going up. The expression, "you have to trust your instruments," comes from this very scenario. In any plane, big or small, if the pilot cannot see, he or she has to fly using the instruments as guides. If he or she doesn't, the results might very well be like this crash. He screwed the plane into the ground at full throttle. Walking around any inquest scene, I try to see things from a different angle than law enforcement. A good police officer stays focused. I think it's a reflection of their firearms training. They look down the barrel sights at a target. The big picture is filtered out. The target, human or paper, is the focus. All else is blurred as the shooter takes aim. I try to see everything and everything all around, especially looking for something that doesn't quite fit. I find a small body part dangling from a low tree limb. Just a few feet away on another limb hangs a little square cloth bag. "I need some help in gloves," I call to the fireman. The body part is a testicle, which I do not touch. The cloth bag is a back pocket blown away from the victim's pants. It must have been a pretty big pop. Newton's first law of motion says, in part, that an object in motion tends to stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force. An airplane traveling at least 200 miles an hour was stopped by the earth in less than a second. This releases a large amount of energy and strange things happen. Things fly apart, including bodies and pants. The funeral home arrives and the removal begins. Firemen are pulling limbs and body parts from the crater dug out by the plane, and they're placing them in a body bag. They found only one head. That's a good thing. It means only one victim. Clothing was mostly burned and destroyed. The crater is half full of water. Pumps from the fire department suck out the water as firefighters work. The smell of airplane fuel lingers in the air. In the pants pocket hanging in the tree is a billfold. I'm proud of my find, and I may be a little territorial myself. I'll check it out, I tell the sergeant as he reaches for my evidence. In the billfold is an employment ID, a driver's license issued to Clifford Peterson, and several addresses and telephone numbers. I call one of the numbers. "Hello," a woman answers in a pleasant voice. "Hello, do you know Clifford Peterson?" I asked. "Does he work for an airline?" "Yes, he's my husband. He commutes to Houston and flies out of Gladewater. Who is this?" She is starting to show concern. This confirms what the evidence is pointing to, a local resident commuting to work. I know that when I identify myself as Judge Shamburger, she'll have questions. Some of them do not need to be answered over the phone. How can you reveal to a person you're talking to in a gentle way that someone they love is dead? In my nursing days, the practice was not to directly tell the person on the other end of the line, but if they ask, "Dead?" we would say, "Yes." This is a good method, because if they really don't want to know, they won't ask. Some people need time to prepare their minds for what might be bad news. On most inquests, someone else will notify the next of kin, but sometimes we have no choice but to be the bearers of bad news. When asked, "When would you want to know?" most people would say, "As soon as possible." But when the family surrounds the decedent, the first thing often said is, "Don't tell so-and-so. We better wait until." And then when it's all over, so-and-so is mad because no one said anything. Somebody else called, or worse, they read about the death in the paper or saw it on TV. I take my phone away from my mouth and ask the sergeant, "Do you have someone in the area?" "Gladewater Police is on standby," he says. I make the decision. "My name is Judge Shamburger. Are you at home at 1221 Bonner Street?" I had gotten the address from the decedent's driver's license. "Yes," she said, quivering. "What's wrong?" I nod to the sergeant and get a patrol car en route. "Is there anyone else with you?"
No, what's wrong?
"Miss Peterson, I need you to relax. Are you sitting down?"
Relax? Is this a joke?
"No, ma'am." I pause. "This is not a joke." I pause again. "Let me know when you're sitting down." I wait, stalling, hoping the local officers will get to the residence in a hurry.
Talk to me, she demands.
"Let me know when you're sitting down." I hear a chair slide and a sigh as she lands.
Okay, I'm sitting. What's going on?
"Did Mr. Peterson fly out of Gladewater today?"
Yes,
She sighs. She knows what's coming. Husbands and wives of pilots, like those of police officers, firefighters, soldiers, and oil field workers, all live with the knowledge that their significant other may not come home one day. It's the nature of their jobs. Today, she fixed his breakfast for the last time. Today, she kissed him goodbye for the last time. Today, her greatest fear is realized.
Did he crash?
She asked, knowing the survival rates of small plane crashes. Yes.
Where is he?
It happened just outside of Gladewater at the golf course.
What do I need to do?
Just wait there. Someone will be there shortly. Do you have any family or friends or neighbors you could call?
Our daughter.
Then silence. Relax and breathe. There's no rush for anything. Take your time. Are you okay?
I'll be all right, she says. There's someone at the door.
People who live on the edge take chances. It's irritating and scary when you care about someone who is a risk taker. You wish they were different, but if they were different, well, then they would not be the same person you chose to care about or love. In fact, the relationship with you may be one of the risks that they are taking. Risk takers are the ones who will take off across the street while everyone else waits at the curb for the cars to pass. They're the ones who climb the cliff rather than take the trail, or take that little road just to see where it goes, or jump out of an airplane, bungee jump, ride in a glider, or ride a wheelie on just the back tire of a motorcycle. They go too fast and swim out too far. I've done them all. We push the limits, physically and mentally. The reward is the thrill. The cost can be devastating. It's always sad when the adventurer goes beyond his or her capacity and ends up in a hospital or a coffin. Still, I dare say that no astronaut leaves this earth without accepting the possibility of never coming back. Knowing this possibility, the astronaut works and waits for years for the opportunity to ride the rocket. Death is the ultimate risk that awaits us all over the edge. The firefighters went home. The wreckage remained. The Department of Public Safety stood guard until midnight. Investigators from the Federal Aviation Administration arrived around noon the following day. End of chapter 4. I found a couple of errors in my book, but one mistake is this. Actually, there are quite a few small plane crashes that do not end in a fatality. Those don't make the news. I'm not sure why this particular inquest appealed to me, except that I do like to fly and I've jumped out of airplanes, and I guess I used to be a risk taker. I don't take near the risks that I used to. We'll talk about that later on. This next chapter I wrote towards the end of my writing and decided I'd put it up front because it's interesting and, well, it kind of gives you a perspective of the murder case.